Hey, I'm Ryan from The Burnout Show, and in this video, I'm gonna show you how to pull a dent on your car using a stud welder. Stud welders are really good for smaller dents like these. If you did have a larger dent, like in your door panel, that, takes up a larger space, it wouldn't be the best for that. You could definitely still use it and it would still work, but something like a suction cup puller might be a better solution because you can definitely get a larger area with a suction cup puller. The stud welder is more designed for smaller dents like these. However, it does require you to remove the paint in the dent. So, if this is a project that you're actively working on, if you have easy replacement paint and have the ability to do that, that's great. Otherwise, this might not be the method for you. We'll have other videos coming out soon about how to pull dents using other paint-safe methods. But if you do, if you don't care about the paint right here, or if you can replace it yourself, that's great. This method is gonna work really well for you. So this little thing right here is a stud, and this is the stud welder. The way this works is you put the stud into the tip of the stud welder, and then you put the stud welder up against the car and you'll push in, but we'll get to that. Basically, we're gonna be welding this stud to the car and then using the slide hammer to pull the dent off. So that's just like a brief overview of how this process actually works. And the first step, like I said, is actually gonna be grinding this down so that you remove the paint and get clean metal that you can weld to. There's a couple different methods for how you can do that. I mean, you can use sandpaper. Right here, I've got a die grinder with a sanding pad on it or an abrasive disc. So I'm gonna use that. This is an air compressed one. It's gonna be really quick. It's just gonna take me a couple seconds to get that paint off. And then, like I said, that'll allow us to move forward to actually weld the stud on there and then pull that dent out. For a dent that's this wide, we might actually have to do it in two separate spots. So I might wanna do one over in this corner and then one over here. This is a deeper dent right here, but this is a smaller dent. And if we were to go after this one, I'd probably go right in the middle and then try to pull that out. But for this, like I said, I'm probably gonna do it in two spots. I'm gonna start up here, which is kind of where the dent is a little bit deeper, and then I'll probably do one over here as well. So I'm generally gonna sand this whole section just to make sure that I have the ability to do it wherever I need. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand this down. As I was grinding that, I noticed that there were actually a couple of deeper spots, like small deeper spots, and those are actually the best spots to put the studs. So for example, there is one little extra divot right here. So I'm probably gonna try to weld one of the studs right in that, because that'll allow me to pull that part out farther since it is pushed in farther. So I am gonna grab a couple of these studs, because like I said, I'm gonna have to do this a few times. Like I said, you stick the stud into the tip of the stud welder. From here, you then take the stud welder, push it up against the car. And like I said, you wanna make sure that the tip goes into one of the deepest points. But the way this works is that in order to actually get that weld, you do have to have this outer casing touching the metal. And if you don't have a solid connection from this outer casing, then it won't actually weld. Now, when you do push the tip up and then the outer casing, it doesn't just start welding automatically. You do have a button up here that you need to press. So I'm actually gonna now do this. I'm gonna go ahead and weld one of these on here, probably starting actually in this point right here. We'll just see how this goes. So like I said, we're gonna go right into that deepest point of the divot, and then we're gonna push really hard up against that metal, make sure we've got a solid connection, and then we'll just hold this button for like 2-3 seconds. And then you want to be careful when you pull this off, not to just jostle it around, because you will snap the stud off. So you do want to make sure you pull that straight off. But you can see here, I've got that stud welded onto the car. Not the strongest thing in the world, but it will allow us to stick the hammer on it and then pull that off. So this is a slide hammer right here. This will allow us to stick the stud into the end of the hammer. And then there's a little gripping wheel right here. You can use that to get a good grip. And then you basically just pull the hammer back to pull on the metal. So I've just locked onto the stud there. This is a 2-pound hammer. Now I'll grab the 2-pound hammer and we just want to pull the dent out. So it is pretty common for the hammer to actually fall off of the stud as you pull it, but I'm not sure if you can tell, but I actually did get to pull that dent out a little bit. That was pretty solid, and it's actually looking not too bad. So right here, I've got a cutting wheel. Basically, we just need to cut off this stud now, and then we can weld on another one in a couple different spots. You can use like tin snips or pretty much anything to cut this off, but you do want to be careful that you don't just grab a pair of pliers and like wiggle it off, because you can actually poke a hole in the metal that you then have to fill. So you do want to be careful about that. That's why it's better to use a pair of tin snips or a cutting wheel if you have one, so that you get a nice clean cut and then you can grind it down back to smooth metal. So I just chopped off the stud, and I'm very tempted to use this cutting wheel to just grind down that little nub. However, I do know that if I use this cutting wheel to grind it down, I'm gonna cut some holes in it. So I'm just gonna wait until I have my angle grinder properly set up and use the angle grinder to grind that down. So right here, I'm going to show you in a little more detail how this slide hammer actually grips onto the stud. You can see this little wheel right here. It's mostly inside, and then when you flip it around, now it's like mostly above. So the axle's not perfectly in the center of the wheel. That allows you to grip the stud. So if you do take the wheel and bring it over like this side, so it's the more of it is towards the back and it's not centered on that axle, then slide it over the stud. If you then slide the wheel back towards you, now it'll grip onto that stud. So now you'll be able to then pull and it doesn't completely just slide off. So it's a little tricky, and it is very specific on how you set up that wheel so you get that good grip, but as long as you just do it like that, you should get that grip. You might have noticed that as I was pulling this one off, it did actually kind of stop. The first few hits, it did get a good tug out. Once it kind of reaches where it's supposed to be, the metal does kind of stop moving. Then the slide hammer can actually slide off of the stud. So that's basically how you use the stud welder. From there, it's basically just about repeating this process until you get that dent, you know, pretty much flush. You're unlikely to get it completely perfect, and that would then be where body filler like Bondo would come into play. So in order to get an actual perfect, flush, smooth finish on this metal, you can actually use something like Bondo to finish that off and smooth it out. Because the dent puller is great to fix something like these dents and pull them out a little bit, but if you do want a perfect straight finish on it, body filler is going to be the way to finish that off before you paint it. If you were a little bit better with this than I am, then you probably could get it pretty straight without the body filler. So for us, we're gonna fool around with this for a little bit longer, probably hit it with another stud or two, and then that's probably gonna be it. We'll wrap it up there. But like I said, for you guys, that's kind of just how you use it. And then from there, you just gotta get the dent out on your own. So that's gonna do it for this video. If you did find this video helpful, make sure you hit that like button and definitely subscribe, because we will have more videos coming out soon about how to do certain things with bodywork and how to repair dents in other ways. But that is gonna do it for this video. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
What about the other dent?
Oh, you didn't pay me for that one.